For centuries, European powers didn't just take Africans, they bought them, exploiting rival kingdoms where elite rulers traded captured enemies for guns, gunpowder, and political survival. The truth is messy. Global empires fueled a brutal market, and local power struggles helped keep it alive. It wasn't Africans selling Africans. It was warlords, empires, and European weapon dealers feeding the deadliest system in human history. When European ships arrived on West African coasts, they brought one thing that changed everything: weapons. Kingdoms locked in regional conflicts suddenly saw an opportunity. Trade prisoners of war for firepower. The more guns a kingdom gained, the more territory it could conquer, and the more captives it could seize for the next trade. It became a vicious cycle engineered by European profiteers, turning political rivalries into a continent-wide arms race. European traders knew exactly what they were doing. They flooded the coast with muskets and ammunition, making African rulers dependent on foreign firepower. Every gun deal strengthened one kingdom while destabilizing another. The chaos wasn't accidental. It ensured a constant supply of captives. Meanwhile, European nations cleaned up the profits, industrialized their economies, and built empires fueled by African labor on plantations in the Caribbean and the Americas. By the time abolition movements gained momentum, the damage was done. Millions displaced, nations destabilized, economies warped, and entire regions reshaped for European gain. Yet the most controversial truth remains. Slavery survived not just because of European demand, but because global powers engineered a system where local elites were pressured, armed, and incentivized to feed it. It was not a simple story of betrayal. It was a geopolitical trap designed to fracture a continent while building the modern world. For over 1,000 years, migrating Bantu-speaking peoples reshaped southern Africa, bringing ironworking, cattle wealth, and complex age-set military systems that turned villages into proto-armies. By the 1700s, the Nguni world was overcrowded, armed, and politically unstable. A pressure cooker pinned between mountains, the sea, and the rising pull of European trade, rival clans fought for cattle, land, and access to Portuguese weapons at Delagoa Bay. The result was a region primed for an explosion. And into this chaos stepped a young, brutal genius named Shaka, who fused innovation with terror and rewired African warfare forever. Shaka turned the old skirmishing style of tossing spears at a distance into a close combat killing machine. He banned throwing spears, armed his warriors with the stabbing Ikalwa, expanded shields into body armor, and drilled his men like a proto-Spartan state. Fueled by discipline, fear, and his own merciless ambition, Shaka smashed rival clans and absorbed their survivors into the rising Zulu nation. But the real shockwave wasn't the conquests. It was the Mefakane, the continent-wide chain reaction of destruction, flight, famine, and mass migration triggered as people fled. Zulu power, entire societies collapsed. New kingdoms like the Swazi, Basotho, Kololo, Ngoni, and Matabele rose from the ashes. It was nothing less than the Big Bang of southern African geopolitics. When the Afrikaner Boers pushed inland during the Great Trek, the unstoppable Zulu military engine finally met a weapon it couldn't easily crack. The Boer wagon lager, a ring of ox wagons turned into a wooden fortress armed with slow but devastating muskets. Zulu charges broke on the wagons like waves on rock, culminating in the bloody disaster at Blood River, where thousands died and not one Boer was killed. Meanwhile, Shaka-trained warlords like Mzilikazi carried Zulu-style warfare across the High Veld and into modern Zimbabwe, carving out new empires on the ruins of scattered tribes. By the time colonial forces fully entered the region, the political map of southern Africa had already been violently redrawn, first by Shaka's revolution, then by the chaotic domino effect it unleashed. When Europeans arrived offering weapons, the entire political map of West Africa exploded. Rulers didn't just participate, they competed. Rivals were hunted, kidnapped, or wiped out at dawn, marched to coastal forts by noon, and exchanged for guns and gunpowder by sunset. The shocking truth is, Europeans didn't need to force this system. Many African elites rushed to supply captives, begging for more weapons to crush their enemies. Every gun that entered the continent guaranteed another raid, another village gone, another kingdom destroyed. Some African rulers didn't stop at selling enemies. They turned on their own people debtors, rebellious families, lower-class villagers, even political rivals were sold off the moment they became inconvenient. Betrayal became profitable. Entire clans disappeared because a king wanted European steel, alcohol, or luxury goods. A few powerful kingdoms grew rich from the trade, forming alliances with European merchants while labeling their captives as criminals or prisoners of war, even when they weren't. What began as regional warfare turned into a continent-wide industry that devoured millions. African intermediaries captured, marched, and sold people to coastal forts specifically built for mass trade. European merchants negotiated prices like livestock, warriors for muskets, women for textiles, children for gunpowder. As this machine grew, kingdoms rose and collapsed, societies fractured, and the continent spiraled into chaos that still echoes today. This is the part of history people avoid, because it forces us to confront the truth. The slave trade wasn't just an invasion from outside, it was fueled from within. Bullets tore through the air, cannons thundered, and the ground shook as 20,000 Zulu warriors charged the unsuspecting British camp at Isanawana. In 1879, spears clashed with rifles, shields deflected bayonets, and in minutes, an entire battalion of Queen Victoria's finest lay dead. The British, arrogant and overconfident, had dismissed warnings about the Zulus' tactics, and it cost them everything. The Zulu Horns of the Buffalo maneuver surrounded the camp, crushing soldiers in a relentless wave of hand-to-hand combat. It was a massacre unlike anything the empire had seen since Kabul, and yet, even in victory, the Zulu kingdom's independence was already slipping through its fingers. Despite facing the might of a modern army armed with rifles and artillery, the Zulus refused to surrender. Warriors fought with unmatched bravery, charging fortified positions like Rorke's Drift again and again, their courage defying logic. But the pressures of the outside world, wealthy colonies, booming economies, and the lure of personal freedom pulled young Zulus away from their traditional way of life. Even the most disciplined army cannot fight against both bullets and social collapse, and the kingdom's future was quietly being eroded while they held the battlefield with honor. At Ulundi, superior British firepower finally turned the tide. Cannons and machine guns cut through Zulu regiments before they could reach the defensive square. Setshwayo's warriors, valiant as ever, were slaughtered in formations that had dominated Africa for generations. The king's defeat marked more than a battlefield loss. It shattered Zululand politically. Chiefs were forced to sign treaties, armies disbanded, and civil wars erupted, leaving the once proud kingdom fractured and powerless to resist colonial domination. The Matabele faced a similar fate under Lobengula. Even with elite regiments like Ingubo and Imbizo, the Matabele fell to Maxim machine guns in open combat. Despite incredible bravery and tactical skill, Lobengula's kingdom was carved up, his warriors massacred, and lands handed over to European settlers. Like the Zulus before them, the Matabele discovered that courage alone could not withstand industrial-age weaponry and the relentless encroachment of imperial powers. Their stories remain as testaments to both legendary bravery and tragic inevitability.